Yeah. So I'm super transparent, super vulnerable in my role at Salesforce. This is not a secret, but I had never done any kind of technical work. I'd done kind of like the customer end work, but I never gotten in a system before, ever. And so storytelling is natural to me, right? I'm an expert storyteller. That's what I do 9 times out of 10. However, I learned at Sprinkler that I needed to also learn the tech. I needed to learn how we coded. I needed to learn that we would basically acquire products, break them down, rebuild them in our system. What did that mean? What does that mean for our customers? What does the data lakes mean? Things that were so foreign, I can't even begin to explain, Felix. Like, okay, this is a foreign language to me.
In today's episode, we have Allison, who is a senior manager at Salesforce. Welcome, Allison.
Hi, Felix. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on. So, you spent a lot of time at digital agencies for a long time as a strategist, and then you entered this field around 2015. Can you tell us about that transition? What led you to transition into kind of the pre-sales, the sales engineering career path?
I always say pre-sales is the best job field no one knows about. And that was me too. I had my career I graduated from UT in Austin, and then I went immediately into digital strategy work. So I worked for a PR firm and I worked for one of the largest private agencies in the country. I love branding. I love strategy, every single thing that has to do with digital from start to finish. And I was just like super happy, brainstorming all day, working with customers. Well, I was really young and I was presenting into these huge customer presentations. And that was really rare at this agency to be presenting that early on in your career. And I remember SaaS company, we used a company called Sprinkler. He said, you should think about being a solution engineer. I didn't know what a solution engineer was. Back in Sprinkler, we called it solution consultant. I was like, okay. And so I interviewed. I really, really liked the woman I interviewed with. Her name was Katie Raymer. And I said, sure, let's do it. Let's make this career change. I went to kick off our boot camp in New York. And one of the sales guys was like, are you ready to demo all day? And I said, oh, I don't do that. And he goes, what do you think you do? I'm just going to present. He goes, on what? I hadn't made the connection that, oh, I have to learn this platform. I'm going to have to go technical. Oh, this is much different. However, I did it, right? And I fell in love and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, we use this term pre-sales here, but for the audience that might not know the areas where different roles step in the entire sales cycle, can you talk about what is pre-sales specifically, and maybe like is there post-sales, and what is the different stages where a sales engineer might step into the sales process?
Yeah. So in the sales process, the sales rep or account executive, whatever their names are at different companies, is usually paired with a solution engineer to help build credibility, to help build trust, to really understand what the customer is looking to solve for. And that way, during the sales cycle, they are getting a demo of your product or an art of the possible presentation or whatever that is to show them how the product is going to come to life for them. So, olden days, you would say, like, hey, I have this vacuum, buy it. Like, oh, great, this is amazing. In this world of SaaS that we're all in, especially the last decade, the products are very, very, very complex and the software is complex and it can do a lot. So, the solution engineer's job is to essentially make sure they know what the customer is trying to solve for and let it come to life. And that's why you have to partner with an SE. So we're really good technical folks, but we're also really good storytelling folks too.
Yeah, so it sounds like the storytelling side you already had a natural knack for before you stepped into this role. But it sounded like you actually had some challenges with the other aspects of or the other skills that are required for the role. Tell us more about those specific skills and how you were able to develop them over time.
Yeah. So I'm super transparent, super vulnerable in my role at Salesforce. This is not a secret, but I had never done any kind of technical work. I'd done kind of like the customer end work, but I never gotten in a system before, ever. And so storytelling is natural to me, right? I'm an expert storyteller. That's what I do 9 times out of 10. However, I learned at Sprinkler that I needed to also learn the tech. I needed to learn how we coded. I needed to learn that we would basically acquire products, break them down, rebuild them in our system. What did that mean? What does that mean for our customers? What does the data lakes mean? things that were so foreign, I can't even begin to explain, Felix. Like, okay, this is a foreign language to me. So I had to take a certification to basically present, to be allowed to present, and I failed it. And I'm a type A, like I will exceed every expectation. And I remember thinking, this is not for me. I hate the tech part. What am I doing? And I saw Pitch Perfect, the first one. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to study all weekend. I'm going to learn this thing. And then I had to retake the test the following month and passed. But I tell that story because sometimes for people with non-traditional backgrounds coming into pre-sales, they either only have the technical or they only have the storytelling. And to succeed, you really have to have both. You have to come at it with that technical mind, and it might not be easy for you, but you just have to learn it if this is what you want to do.
Yeah, and for someone like myself who comes from a technical background, I can kind of understand how you can create like a curriculum for yourself to study more of the technical side. But the storytelling side almost seems much more harder to at least nail down like a curriculum, how you can actually get better at this. So what's your recommendation here for anyone out there that might come with a strong technical background, but not so much on the storytelling? How do you get better at that?
So, one of my favorite programs to put my new hires through is called Demo to Win. It's a way to force people almost to think about your demo in a different, more compelling, empowering way. The whole premise is tell, show, tell. When you demo something, you want to show it and say, look at all these features and functions. Look how much I know. Let's go deep. Let's nerd out together. However, that works really well, usually in post sell and implementation partners and really making the system do exactly what you want it to do. That's a fantastic time to nerd out. Let's go deep. Let's spend hours together. In the pre-sale process, your job is to make it come to life for the customer so they can see themselves in it. It has to look easy. It has to look, hey, this is exactly what I want it to do. You're going to come in and save my life. Like, this is amazing. And so in order to do that, if you approach it from a tell, show, tell, let's say you're not a storyteller, but let me tell a compelling story to you. Let me tell you what I'm going to show you and why I'm going to show it to you. Then I'm going to show it to you in the technical, in whatever system I'm using, in this case, Salesforce. Let me walk you through, let me demo it to you. Then I'm going to come back to a slide or to, a Miro board or whatever it is to tell the story and why I just showed it to you. And there are studies done on our brains that in order to tell a story, to make people remember, they say you have to see something 7 times to let it remember. It's kind of like that advertising, like bringing back that digital advertising. I am going to show you the value every step of the way. Even if you're not a storyteller by nature, if you follow this simple solution, you're going to have that much more of a compelling story and you're going to have the audience there with you. Especially in Zoom world now after the pandemic, I watch eyes glaze over all the time, right? So in order to, hey, I'm going to show you, let's talk about why I showed you and recap it. I'll also call out people's names. I'll say, hey, Felix, how did what I just showed you, how is that going to impact your day-to-day today? And they're like, oh, and the rest of the people on the call are thinking, I need to pay attention. So it's a strong, tried and true way to be a storyteller when that might not be your, natural thing that you're born with.
I love that. I love that you gave us almost like a formula to work with, which I think fits really nicely for someone that thinks more technically. So when you go into these demos, how do you know ahead of time what is valuable to them? How do you know what you should be showing these potential clients?
Yeah, that is discovery. So when I first started out as pre-sales, I used to hate discovery. And I would be like, oh gosh, I feel so uncomfortable. I have to ask them. I have to, there's different sales methodologies, but one of them is making them stand in their pain. I have to remind them what's not working. And along the way, along my career, I kind of flipped that and started thinking about discovery as this ongoing process. Even after that deal is signed, right? We're still doing discovery. We're still making sure they have a good onboarding. But coming back to your original question of how do we know, it's all about discovery. So every single time that you have an opportunity to talk to the customer, you're learning what matters to them. You're learning what's hard for them. You're learning what good and great look like. And you're learning, okay, is that feature even going to matter? Like, who cares? Oh, this piece, you know what? That I can make come to life in a really powerful way for them. And it's all about building trust. It's all about getting them to trust you, essentially to give you that information to make it that much more powerful for them. So a lot of times when I am on calls, I don't do a lot of demos anymore, but my amazing team does, right? So I'm more of like a player coach now in this new role, but it's more about I get on and I say, hi, like I've been in your shoes, right? I've been working for the customer before. I've been trying to solve these problems before. I'm your trusted advisor. Usually pre-sales doesn't have a quota. So I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm just trying to be here to help you to instantly build that rapport, to build that relationship. So when you're going through this discovery, it feels really natural and it doesn't feel like, hello, Felix, please tell me what you're looking for today. It's like, hey, tell me about your day. What takes up the most time? What kind of manual processes are you doing? What would matter if you could track a donation from start to finish? What would that look like to you? So you kind of have to flip your brain on discovery when working with customers, new legacy customers. It's all about discovery.
Yeah, have you ever, I'm sure you've encountered this where there might be challenging conversations either during discovery or any other kind of stage here where you're trying to just say get information out of the clients. That sound like I'm like we're interrogating them, but not like that. But like you're trying to get information out of them, but they're not leading you down the right way, or you're just kind of hitting roadblocks. Do you have a specific technique or approach to get around the more difficult like obstacles that are, I guess, getting in the way of getting to the answer for the both of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a empath. I'm like a 99% feeler, so I can kind of feel people out. So if someone's stonewalling me, I'll just be like, "Hey, this doesn't sound fun, right? Like, let's talk about, kind of what I'll say is like, what would your ideal day look like?" You got to understand, people are going through a process of trying to find a new software, right? They're talking to so many vendors and they're getting asked the same questions over and over again. And they feel like, "Oh my gosh, I already told you this." So kind of surprise them, talk to them differently, talk to them like a person, do your homework, come to every opportunity you have with your customer, do some research about them. So I'll give you an example. We were talking to a big nationwide church, right? Has a ton of different websites. I think there's like 18 different websites that they help with, and they have products and services, and they have conferences and all these things. And they had, it was kind of one of those discovery calls. There's a ton of people on. I think there's like 30 people. And the salesperson was like, and here's Allison. Hi, let's try to find out what you're trying to solve for today. And so it kind of felt like that, like, well, I have this issue. Well, I have this issue. And we ended up, we're going to do a big whiteboarding session and we can do surveys and get consensus. I did some research and I saw that you have 18 different sites that you're linking out to on your main website. What's the main thing that you're trying to solve for this month, this quarter, this year? What is your biggest issue? I can't even really understand what your main priority is. And they kind of stepped back and then they said, that's a good point. And then everyone started jumping in because they all knew like this is a big thing that we're all dealing with. That's just one example. It gets the conversation going. It kind of lets them know that you have some skin in the game too. You're not just, trying to sell them something. It's like, I really want to help you get to a better
Yeah,
place.
and not to disparage the role of the salesperson, but the stuff you're telling me now makes us feel like there's a lot of heavy lifting being done by the sales engineers. And it sounds like there's something that happens with the salesperson before they kind of hand it off to you and you're doing your demo and doing your part of it. I guess what is the handoff? What is sales doing that sales engineers are not doing? What do they do to help with the sales engineer? Vice versa? How is that partnership?
Yeah. So that's a really good point. I think a great partnership is when the sales person and the solution engineer is in lockstep every step of the way. Traditionally, some salespeople could think of a pre-sales person as just a demo monkey. That's a really short-sighted way to think about that. Luckily, I work with some rock stars and I haven't dealt with that in years. I do see it though in the pre-sales collective, and I'll see it on the threads and I'll see it people asking LinkedIn, things like that, because they're experiencing it. But it should be this kind of dance, that example of, and here's Allison, right? That's usually not how it goes. It's usually, hey, let's have our discovery together internally before we even talk to the customer. Let's start creating our account plan. Let's start creating our account channel. Let's start making sure that every single piece of information I know, you know, that any stakeholders know, no matter what, right? So it's continuously updated. It's this living, breathing document or biweekly check-in or whatever that is. Because when you have that deep level of trust and relationship, you could say, hey, Felix, what do you think here? What do you think? Obviously, that comes with working together and it's not going to be right out the gate. But in order to be super successful, and you see the top salespeople who go to club every year, they have a strong relationship with their pre-sales person, and that's a true partnership.
Yeah, and speaking of that kind of partnership and how you work together, what is day to day for a sales engineer? How often are they spending time doing these demos versus the prep work? How do you break down the day to day of a sales engineer?
I mean, that's going to change every single day. I think it works so well for my personality because I get pretty bored with repetition, right? But every single day, even as an individual contributor, is different. So, how we do it, and it could be a lot of different ways, right? A DSR comes through, that's a deal support request. And then we can take a look at the ACV, at the products involved, at the legacy customer or net new. Is it tied to a bigger deal? Is there an upsell? And then when you assign out to a solution engineer, you can assign out based on expertise, based on relationship with that salesperson, based on any back history with the customer, or maybe their expertise comes from, like arts and cultural, something like that. And then they're assigned the DSR, they're assigned the opportunity, and then that becomes the deal they're going to work. So ideally in pre-sales world, you're assigned no more than 6 to 8 in a time frame, probably per month that you're actively working, but every deal requires something new. So I might have 2 or 3 different discovery calls with this one customer because the product is intense and I'm bringing in IT and marketing and volunteer management. I'm bringing in all these different teams. It's a huge deal. Or I only have one discovery and then I don't even do a demo. It's like an art of the possible. Great. So that's like 2 meetings for my week. So it really just depends and it ebbs and flows. And for us, we've kind of have to look at it because we do get so many DSRs. We kind of have to look at it through that lens. But it's different per org. It's different per company. All I can promise you is that it's never going to be the same day to day, ever. I've never had a day where I'm like, ooh, I feel like Groundhog Day today. It's like, "Ooh, okay, let's hit the ground running. What are we going to do today?" And a lot of times it's based on what the customer needs, right?
You're not doing the same day. So let's say that there is a sales engineer out there that has the storytelling, has the technical abilities as well. What other attributes say or skills would you say would take them kind of above and beyond that really makes it out beyond those kind of two?
Deep listening is so important. You need to be actually, when you're in a customer meeting, you need to be listening more than you're talking. So if you're talking more than the customer, you have a problem unless you're presenting. But you also need to be stopping along the way to make sure there's consensus. But you have to listen. It's almost like active listening, which again, it's hard in this world, right? We used to all be in front of people. It was a lot easier, less distractions. So it's like you almost have to fine tune your listening skills even more, or you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, I think at least seeing from the perspective of people that are more technical, I think the tend to over-index on it being to give answers, right? But I think what you're getting at is that there's a lot of value with questions too. It shows that you're paying attention. You're not asking the same question twice, or multiple times. You're showing that you researched in the story that you gave before. If you ask specific questions, and or even the discovery part you talked about earlier, where you kind of ask questions to make sure the customer understands that what they're currently doing is just not what you called it. This kind of these kind of questioning make a big difference. And I think it's a big shift for people to understand that asking questions is it sounds like it's more valuable, especially maybe early in the process than just always kind of giving answer thing.
Felix, you're doing deep listening. So well done, right? Like you called back to what I told you earlier and then applied it. So it's like that instantly builds another level of trust with you. Every time you're talking to a customer, you're building trust. I think people kind of forget the importance of listening. And one thing I was going to tell you when you were saying that about how technical people like to say, I know the answer, right? One of my favorite technical architects, I've worked with them now for almost 5 years. When a customer asks him a question, I've seen it for years. He's one of our best. He knows the answer. He knows the answer yesterday, right? He already knows what they're going to say. He will always push back and ask them another question to make the customer think about the question, right? And go deeper. and make it that much more powerful. So when he does provide a response, it's almost like here's the answer he could have given this level up here. But because he asked another question, then the customer's like, oh, yeah, let me think about it that way. And we can go deeper and we can solve deeper and we can architect deeper. And it's almost like training your mind to think about things differently and not like, hey, I know the answer. Look at this feature. It's like, well, let's take it deeper. Like, why are you asking that? How would that impact marketing? How would that impact your IT team? And then they have to think about it. So it's everyone is instantly smarter and better by continuing that never ending cycle of questions. Obviously, you want to answer when you can, but it's just really cool to watch him work. And I've adopted some of the things he does because he is a very technical person, but he has the ability to even get deeper discovery just every touch point he has with the customer.
Yeah, I think that's important because I think I recognize too now. I've seen the exercise of the five whys where the very first question or first thing someone brings up is never really the true thing that they're getting at. It's just the almost like the first thread that they can latch onto to get to their true answer. I think, and also I think by asking these questions, you are, when you are a client and you're looking to hire or buy something, trusted advisor, like you mentioned before, and if I knew all the questions, I could probably find all the answers. But a lot of times I don't even know all the questions. And I think that's the important
Right.
part of asking questions. I'm like, oh wow, they're actually thinking about things that I didn't even think about. And that it starts building that trust. Well, I can trust a person, Allison's case, with my business or what I'm trying to solve for.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love that. That is something, especially for technical listeners, it's okay to use the time to ask more questions. Promise you. It will
Yeah.
build more credibility and trust along the way. Promise.
So I want you to talk a little bit about the kind of progression that you've made. You've moved from an IC to a manager now. You mentioned that it's kind of a player coach role that you're playing here. For anyone that is, let's say, an IC or is considering being an IC as a sales engineer, what are the kind of career options? Management is one that you pursue, but are there others that you see others pursue?
Yeah. So usually at any organization, there's going to be levels for the solution engineers. You can fully use your whole career to be an individual contributor all the way up. There's levels like associate, solution engineer, senior, lead, principal, distinguished. You can do that your whole career and you just have your deal work, a lot of strategy, and that makes you happy. And that's totally fine. You can be a leader anytime, right? Without having to have a leader in your title. I firmly believe that. However, for some people, they really like people, essentially. And so I think that if you are thinking, I really like being able to coach more than actually doing the day to day. I like to kind of come in and take a look high level. I think for me personally, I come from a strategy background. So coming into an account and looking at things from a high level strategy just come natural to me. And I'm also, like I said, an empath. So I really like pouring into people. There are some people who move into a manager role and they realize they do not like it and they can go back to an IC. It's totally fine. It's not like this in pre-sales, especially, like I have to do this path and that's success. It's like you can kind of make it what you want. I remember one of my old mentors said, think of it like a jungle gym. Sometimes you can't reach up, you have to go sideways to get to the top or the top, whatever that is to you. And I like that analogy because sometimes it is just a complete lateral move because it's more fulfilling to you. But I will tell you, there's a guy at Salesforce. His name is Tim Kirby. He's an amazing leader. When I was deciding, should I stay in IC? I've done this for so long. I love it. Should I make a move into a manager role? He said something that someone asked him was, okay, so when you think about the accolades, like close your eyes, you think about going to club, you think about getting the awards, the spiffs, you think about all this. Do you want it for yourself? Or would it make you happier to watch someone that you've coached get that kind of stuff? Like someone that you're pouring into get to that level and get that next award and get that next promotion. And for me, it was an easy decision where I was in my career was like, all right, I'm ready to pour into people versus more things for me. But even if the answer was more for me, that would have been okay too, right? And then I would have had a very focused, like, all right, getting to the next level, I'm going to do this. So you just have to think about what makes you happy, what your days look like. I'm on a lot more like forecasting calls, right? And different more I guess like the bread and butter of the role. versus always talking to customers. However, the flip side of that is I get to pour into my team and I get to watch these incredible 7 people that I manage like grow and hit that next piece and, you know, something really hard they never thought they were going to accomplish it and get those awards and go to clubs, stuff like that. And that for me right now is just 10 times better than doing it myself.
Yeah, and when you do become more senior and you stay in IC, like how does the job functions change? Is it just bigger deals, more complex deals, and that's very senior versus someone that's brand new as a sales engineer?
I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way to do it. And there's very, very different. The more senior you get, the bigger, more complex customer deals, relationships that you're able to help. So when you're very first starting off, it's like, here's a small, very easy cut and dry. I'm going to do a demo and I'm going to close the account. When you start getting into like the big, big accounts, like I'll give you an example. When I was at Sprinkler, I was on Gamma accounts. So it was like the global accounts. These were accounts that were over $10 million a year in revenue. A customer like that who's spending that kind of money with you is going to be sophisticated. They're going to have a lot of really hard questions. There's going to be a lot of face-to-face time, a lot of trust building. They're investing a lot in you, so you need to invest a lot in them. We wouldn't want to throw someone brand new into this role into that. But years and years of different kind of situations and experience, that's when someone more senior can move into an account that might need a lot more help and strategy. This is very cut and dry. But again, how you organize it, it can be a million different ways. There's no right or wrong way in that. It's really more of like experience, right?
Hmm.
And skill set, things like that.
That makes sense. Now, I'll leave you this last question. What do you think is like your hottest take about the sales engineering career? Like something that maybe you have an opinion on that you find that not a lot of people agree with, or something that a lot of people agree with that you just disagree with. Like, what would you say is because the thing for you?
I will double down on this. And anyone who talks to me, I do not think that it matters who you're talking to. I do not think it matters if you're talking to IT, if you have the most boring product in the whole world and it sells for one thing. I don't care if you're talking to marketing and the most creative people you've ever talked to in the whole world. I think that if you choose to do a feature function demo, you are missing so much. In this post-pandemic world, people are distracted. People have to adapt and do more compelling ways to sell versus the demo monkey versus the feature function, things that everyone's always done, right? So storytelling is right. It's like where I lean on. But, you know, for a lot of technical folks, it's like, well, let me just show the product. It's like, I don't care if I'm talking to IT. They're not trying to be bored out of their mind today. Yes, they might need to check a box. But even if we're doing something from an RFP perspective, that doesn't mean we can't do a tell, show, tell. That doesn't mean we can have a persona or we can't have a persona and have the numbers of the RFP, check, check, check. And this is how I'm going to tell it. And then I'll go demo it. Like there's a different way to think about technical selling. Even if you're not a natural born storyteller or you're not even doing demo to win, there's power in treating people like a human. And you think about, okay, am I going to be bored out of my mind for the next 4 hours of just like, oh my gosh, this person's clicking? Or are they going to engage me? Are they going to bring out some emotion in me and let this connect to what I'm trying to solve for? So I just think that a lot of people will argue, especially in the technical IT buyers. And I'm like, at the end of the day, they're still people, right? They're still not trying to be bored out of their mind. Let's find a way that connects with them. And I would challenge people on that, no matter what industry, because I think if people started thinking of it as a storytelling human approach.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, still talking to and selling to and working with humans, and humans love storytelling, love stories. And I think you should always be able to exercise that muscle whenever you get the chance to, even though you might not think it's required for this deal. Like, it sounds like your hot take is that it's always required, but even if you didn't believe that, getting that practice, I think, is always useful. So thank you so much for your time, Alan. Again, as a senior manager over at Salesforce, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your advice and your experience with us.
Thanks, Felix. And thank you for your deep listening skills. I really appreciated it.